This is Sunday Rewind on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com. Now, here are your hosts, Tom Stevens and Mike Melby.
Welcome in to a Husker Rewind big game pre-watch party. Tom Stevens is out today. My name is Mike Melby, and Tom said, you know what, let's not have a show on Super Bowl Sunday because it's normally 5 to 7. I said, Tom, that's a great idea. However, it's Super Bowl Sunday, and I'm going to have some fun. I like to do some tailgate stuff and Super Bowl party food. And Tom and I have been doing something called Tailgate Time where we're sharing some recipes on the show here the last few weeks. And so I invited Nick Center, Enrique Alvarez-Cleary, Jake Bachhoven to come in and join me. We fired up some sweet and spicy wings, some garlic parm wings, barbecue little smokies, and a really bad habit.
Yeah, it's all delicious. Melby, appreciate it, man. This is awesome.
This is fantastic. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for coming in, guys. It's a blast.
It's a big day. I woke up. I mean, this whole weekend was great, but it was kicked off by Nebraska basketball's win yesterday. And just the thrilling comeback win. And then it was like, all right, now tomorrow we get to wake up and it's Super Bowl Sunday. And I think this is the most excited I've been for a Super Bowl in the last probably 5 years.
Really?
Why?
And I don't have an NFL team like that I significantly cheer for. I do now after the beginning of this last year. But this year, the matchup is interesting because the whole Jalen Hurts versus Patrick Mahomes. And this is Jalen Hurts' opportunity to kind of rewrite how people feel about him or think about him, because everybody, I mean, we know him as a guy that was in contention for comeback player of the year, and then coming off of just a disappointing year. And he's in that mobile quarterback conversation where it's the mobile quarterbacks can't play quarterback, right? Now, this is his opportunity. If he's able to dethrone Mahomes or at least be in that conversation, he's not necessarily on the scale of Mahomes and Burrow next season, but he's that very next tier, if not already.
I think this is more a Mahomes game. I think if Hurts and the Eagles win, it's a good story. It's cool, the Eagles won. Oh, cool, Hurts has a Super Bowl. Good for him. But for Mahomes, this is so much more. This is his legacy. It's you made it to the Super Bowl in your second year, his first full year, and you won it. And then after that, you've been in contention, but you haven't quite gotten the job done. You got there again, and you got destroyed by the Buccaneers, I believe is who it was, right? Yeah, it was the Buccaneers. They got destroyed by the Bucs. And now you're back in there. Yes, you're dealing with an ankle injury, but you've shown that you're still the best quarterback in the league, working with a depleted wide receiver room all season after Tyreek Hill decided to leave. And you've got one of the best tight ends and one of the best coaches ever. But this is how Mahomes will kind of cement his legacy as one of the greatest if he's able to pull this off, if the Chiefs are able to pull this off.
Yeah, I agree. I had heard some others talk about this is Mahomes' opportunity to become the guy that he was already anointed after year two. He's one of the greatest. He's going to have 5, 6, 7, 8. I mean, you could see him on stage with Bosch, Wade, and LeBron James.
Not
going
1,
4,
not
5,
2.
Yeah, and he's got 1, and he had but they got hammered against Tampa Bay. And I'll be honest, I don't know that the ankle injury is going to be as much of a detriment to Kansas City as Philadelphia's defensive line will be. They're scary.
They 70 sacks this year?
Yeah. What is it? 15 more, 16 more than any other team in football?
Yeah. Third, I believe I was listening to Harrison earlier. I believe that's third all time in a single season.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
So, and the storylines in the game are just fascinating. I mean, you've got the quarterback comparison because, they both are essentially very mobile quarterbacks. Hurts is more of a runner than Mahomes is, but and Mahomes is just such a magician. But at the end of the day, man, it's won and lost at the line of scrimmage, and I think the Chiefs have got an uphill battle today.
I would agree with you there. I would also look at it, if the Eagles are able to come away with a win tonight, we're going to look back at that A.J. Brown trade on draft night and go, that played a huge part, just like we all expected it to. They finessed the Titans for one of the biggest, most physicality-wise, biggest and easiest targets to throw a ball to in the league in AJ Brown. And it resulted in a Super Bowl. Like they figured out a way to finesse the Titans at the draft, and it ended up paying dividends. It already has. I mean, even in a runner-up finish, like it already has paid dividends. It got them to where they want to be. Now, what takes them over the top? I'm there, Melby. I picked the Chiefs to win today, but the line of scrimmage is going to be interesting.
Technically, if you're looking Pro Football Focus, or I don't remember exactly what numbers it was. I believe it was Pro Football Focus. Creed Humphrey is a higher graded center than Jason Kelsey this season, but they are 1 and 2. Those are the two best centers in the league.
Yeah. Well, I think too. I mean, I'm just impressed that Philadelphia has made it back. Of course, they won the Super Bowl in 2018. So sometimes you don't get GM calls out, but Howie Roseman, basically a different cast of characters, and this Eagles team. I don't think it's overwhelming like star power. But just the roster, the depth of it all is crazy. So, I mean, I think you got to give that credit. Then I'm also interested in the Andy Reid part of it. The fact, I mean, because when I think of Andy Reid and all the success he's had with the Kansas City Chiefs, I remember him first with the Eagles, and some of you can remember with the Packers before that or whatever. But he had 4 straight NFC title game appearances, I believe, before getting to a Super Bowl. And so it's just crazy to see how far that's come from mid 2000s, which is crazy. It was also as crazy as that was like 15, 20 years ago now.
It is nuts. It is the Husker Rewind. I'm Mike Melby. We've got Jake Bachhoven, Nick Center, Enrique Alvarez Clary, or Rico.
Okay. Simple. Yeah. Keep it simple.
I keep hearing it. You get introduced at the water cooler and whatever.
It's just a very long name. There's just
but
3 names.
Rico is a complex name. If there's one thing we can keep simple, and
exactly.
Or Rico's a complex man. If there's one thing we can keep simple, it's his name.
There you go.
So what's here also, guys, Nick Sirianni. I mean, Sirianni, excuse me. In his first year, took over for Doug Peterson, who, don't forget, won a Super Bowl with the Eagles in 2018. So I believe that was the Philly special. So was it against the Patriots? Shoot. I didn't know. Shoot.
If anybody's wondering, I'm wearing a Chiefs jersey.
You are today.
Because my wife says the Chiefs are going to win. Therefore, I say the Chiefs are going to win.
There you go.
Also, I do believe the Chiefs are going to win.
I guess this is a good time to plug it as well before we continue on. Buffalo Wings and Rings today, 68th and 0. Make sure you stop on by. I know I'll be there. My family will be there. Bach is going to stop by for a while. Rico and his family are going to be there. I know.
So you can help me watch my kids.
Yeah.
Just let them run around. Everybody it's everybody's responsibility to watch KJ and Ellie today, all right?
Except Rico and Rachel.
Except me and Rachel. It's everybody else's responsibility.
So Melby might stop by if he's able to, but I know AD's making an appearance. I know Sorensen will be out there. Mark will be out there. DP, obviously, wouldn't miss it for the world. So plenty of guys on their way out to Buffalo Wings Rings. I'd recommend getting there decently early for a spot.
Yeah, probably.
Decently early.
But not too early, because I have to get there and save a spot.
Yeah, we need to get there and save
spots. Don't get there before me, but get there early.
So if you're in the Super Bowl square, that's an easy way to go pick up your stuff. I got a peek at some of the prizes, and hoo-wee.
They look good.
They're good. There's some exciting I'll say jerseys and memorabilia and autograph stuff that you have a chance to win. We're doing another Super Bowl square sheet.
I believe so.
So if you're one of the first 100 people to be there, you can get your name entered into a second Super Bowl square sheet. Double the opportunity to win a prize. So make sure you stop on by. 68th and 0 Buffalo Wings Rings tonight. Shout out to them for hosting us.
That's awesome. Hey, I want to jump in and do probably the only bit of the rewind that we normally do. It's called the Starting Gate. We just kind of blast through some stuff that's happened here in the last week because it's a weekly show. And then it's going to open up a couple of talking points, I think, and then we'll jump back into the Super Bowl.
Okay.
And focus on all that because I gave you guys some fun stats on Super Bowl stuff here a while ago. But Nebraska basketball sits 12-5 overall, 5-10 in conference play after 2 games this week. Wednesday they fell by 21 to Michigan. However, yesterday they posted the largest comeback in over a decade with a 73-63 overtime win over Wisconsin. Down 17 early in the second half. Huskers go on a 20-3 run led by who else? Keisei Tominaga.
Bingo.
And he goes 5 of 11 from 3 in the game. In his last 4 games, Tominaga has hit 17 of 33, just over 50%, averaging 25 a game in his last 3 contests. Huskers play at Rutgers on Tuesday before a 3-game homestand against Maryland, Minnesota, and Michigan State, and then they wrap up the season at Iowa. Women are now 14-10, 6-7 in conference, 1-1 this week, and
They're currently playing Michigan.
And they are. They're about probably halftime now.
Let's find out.
Former Husker Leah Brown on that Michigan team.
Yep.
Yeah.
And Amy Williams' crew has started a bad habit here.
So they're in the third quarter, about 4.5 minutes left. They are up 46-42.
Wow. Okay. There you go, Huskers.
But they surrendered a 19-4 run to start the fourth quarter in a win against Northwestern on Monday. And then Thursday, they get outscored 20-0 from 2 minutes left in the third until about 4:45 into the fourth. And they wind up losing the game.
So I was at that game
against Illinois. Yeah.
It was the strangest thing where I'm sitting up there with the rest of the press people and we're just in awe because nothing changed defensively for Illinois. They didn't make any drastic changes to slow anybody down. They just kept doing what they were doing. And Nebraska just stopped making shots. They only had 13 turnovers for the game, which was below their season average and below what they were averaging in the past couple of games. They just the shots just stopped falling and Illinois couldn't miss. Nebraska, the fouling, which I totally understand why Illinois' coach was getting so upset. Nebraska attempted 34 free throw attempts. They had 34 free throw attempts. They made 22. Illinois attempted 11 and made 10.
Yep.
The game was called very differently on both sides of the court. But Nebraska had their chance. They just couldn't find the bottom of the net in the second half.
Well, and let's face it, normally it seems to always be the other way around. Where whether it's the men's team or women's team, that you're looking at an opponent having 25 more free throws than Nebraska does, and that's kind of what I wanted to lead into real quick. I want to softball is 4-1 to start the season. They won earlier today over Virginia, 2 wins over Lamar. Who else did they beat? Houston, and then they lost to South Dakota State. Baseball kicks off against the Toreros.
Yeah, San Diego.
Yeah, this Friday. 4-game set out there.
Speaking of San Diego, Ani Evans. Setter for Nebraska, transfers to San Diego, was in the Final Four for volleyball this season, lost in the semifinals to eventual champion Texas.
Yeah.
One thing I want to add about Husker softball, outscored opponents 24-1 this weekend. That one loss against South Dakota State was a 1-0 shutout.
Allowed one run.
They allowed one run and they lost a game. So I mean, and that's part of baseball softball. The other team just does their job better. Like, you can have, and Rhonda Revelle kind of talked about this last Wednesday when we got to talk to her, is throughout the season, because like expectations and goals, and like she said something about the like winning the day or whatever, like whatever mantra they use. And in baseball and softball, I'm sure there's other sports out there as well. You can play a clean game and still lose 1 or 2-1 or 1-0 or 3-2. You can play a really clean game and still lose. And so that's what's tough about baseball and softball. And that was one of them. They played a clean game. I don't think they had an error in that game. Courtney Wallace pitched a really good ball game. You could argue that she did her part. The offense just struggled as well. But that South Dakota State team is a team that made the NCAA tournament last year as well. So it's not like it's a slight to lose to them. But once again, outscored opponents this weekend 24-1.
Just didn't have a good strategy.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, thank you. The stream was just atrocious the entire weekend.
So one thing I want to ask you guys about the basketball game, we were touching on it when we were kind of snarfing in the other room. But the interesting thing to me is what seems to be the bigger talking point with the Nebraska win yesterday is Chucky Hepburn being booed versus Nebraska with the biggest comeback in a decade and a huge win. And I mean, for everything that's gone weird sideways with that program this year from an injury standpoint, et cetera. And this goes all the way back to preseason with Q McPherson. Like, here's your backup point guard, a guy that you're going to rely on for 20, 25 minutes a game, and you figure you're going to get 6, 3, and 2 out of him. Yep, sorry, can't play all season, blew a knee out. They're 2 games under 500. They have 5 games to go. 3 of them are at home. And both of the road games, Rutgers is just going to be a rock fight. And I don't know that's
hard to win at Rutgers.
Yeah,
no matter
really
who
is.
you are.
Exactly. But Nebraska smoked Iowa. And I get it. They missed some open threes in that game. But I also think Coach Hoiberg has got, and that team has something figured out with the way Iowa plays. And Nebraska likes home cooking. So after all of this crap, all this bad luck and injuries, they have a realistic shot of somehow making it to a postseason bid.
That's crazy.
And I think it's awesome. I do. I keep going back to Bach a couple of weeks ago on a postgame. He said, do you believe in Hoiberg or do you hope he has success? And I'm like, I believe. I just do. And I think we just gotten smoked by about 22 by somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I still believe. And for those that don't believe, take a look at the season, man. And look at how different ways he's had to adjust and change, get guys to regroup, keep them focused. And it's a huge testament to the guys on the team.
Mm-hmm. Ran a 2 big lineup for the first time this season.
Oh, I know.
And it looked really good.
Yeah. So
it's crazy what happens when you don't have to put an under guy at the 5.
Exactly.
Yeah. Or a stretch guy, right?
Yeah.
Here's what's crazy, guys. Hypothetically speaking, you remember that Purdue game, and it was one of those where Nebraska had a chance to win the game. They had like 3 chances at a layup at the end of regulation, and they failed, and they ended up losing the game to eventual number 1 Purdue. If they would have fixed that, if they would have won that game, all right, they would be right now 13-13, 6-9 in the conference, which is good for 7th place in the Big Ten Conference right now, and they would be having another. Let's see, they would win against the number 1 team in the country.
That's a first round bye in the Big Ten tournament.
That
right?
is.
So
And at the beginning of the season, sorry, Melby, at the beginning of the season, when you talk about expectations or what you want, when you being realistic for Nebraska men's basketball in a conference like the Big Ten, you sit there and go, avoid having to play on Wednesday in the Big Ten tournament.
And that's
Avoid having to play on Wednesday just to preserve legs. Because if on the off chance, and crazier things have happened where Nebraska's able to get 2 rounds or 2 wins in the Big Ten tournament a couple years ago under Tim Miles. Yes, thank you. So yes, they were able to get 2 wins in the Big Ten tournament. But then you run into number 1, a really good team on Friday, but then also you're just gassed. You are gassed, and Nebraska's never been deep enough. They've never been big enough. They have all the odds stacked against them. So it's like, I know we don't want to hang our hat on incremental progress, but literally at the beginning of the season, all I find myself saying is be an NIT team at least, and don't have to play on Wednesday. Avoid playing on Wednesday.
I want to go back to that Purdue game because it's still just bothers me. The one dude from Purdue is bringing the ball up the court in overtime. They're up 1. He overruns the basketball. Just forgets to continue dribbling.
I forgot about that foul too.
And Emmanuel Bandamel is like, thank you. And it was a one-on-none going the other way with 6 seconds left. And we're down by 1. And instead, a phantom call on CJ Wilcher, who never touched the guy.
That's right.
If that call is not made, Nebraska wins that game.
Yeah,
that still just bothers me.
I forgot about that call.
Yeah, although,
and that's just
to your point. They never should have been in overtime. They
free throws were bad that game, and Nebraska. Now they had something positive from that game is that they controlled Zach Edey really well in that game. But you didn't hit your free throws all that well, and you had 3 opportunities at the horn to win it.
And that's saying that in that game everything goes the exact same that things have gone.
Yeah.
But who's to say that you don't win that game, have some sort of momentum, some sort of good luck charm out of that, and you win some more games after? You never know. So it's a weird season for Fred Hoiberg in Nebraska, but the win against Wisconsin feels real good. And like you said, 5 more games to possibly get over 500, which after the injury to Juwan and Emmanuel, you could not have convinced me that would have happened.
I didn't think they'd win another game. So,
well, and I will say this, like, even after the Purdue, you talked about trajectory, even with that Purdue loss, they bounced back relatively well. And that's something that this team, despite not having Juwan Gary and Emmanuel Bandamel, have done really well. And it's probably credits due to Fred, obviously, but also Sam Griesel and Derek Watt, the 2 oldest guys on the team. But they've bounced back pretty well. After that Purdue game, they had the one blowout loss to Kansas State, which didn't look good at the time, although they were 10-1. But it's like now Kansas State is a true player in the Big 12 conference.
Are they still top 10?
Yes, they are.
I think they're 7th.
And then you had 2 bounce back wins against Queens in the fashion that you were supposed to win, and then the dominating win against Iowa. You follow that up with a loss on the road at Michigan State, but then you come back with a win on the road at Minnesota. And it's like one thing that we've noticed and we've had to live through as Husker fans the last couple of years is that snowball effect. It's once one thing goes bad, whether it's on a smaller scale within the game or on a grander scale within a season, once one little thing goes wrong or doesn't go according to plan, it snowballs into a much bigger issue. And that's how you get those 18-game losing streaks that they had last year or whatever it was. I can't remember the specific number. But this season, we've seen a team that has avoided that.
And one thing I want to point out as well is you've got a team that just simply the argument I've heard against Hoiberg. Well, he's been here 4 years. He can't build any depth. He's got no depth. And I'm like, okay, well, if he's got no depth, explain to me Jamarcus Lawrence, explain to me Venom Dawson and Sam Hoiberg, and now Blaze Caden now that he's healthy. Because I don't care that they're freshmen and or redshirt freshmen or walk-ons. They have talent, and they're doing what needs to be done for Nebraska to win basketball games. So how is that not depth?
Casey was a sixth man.
Yeah.
Now he's starting.
He doesn't have a choice.
I mean, just look at Casey's growth, though. I mean, this is something we've alluded to quite often. He used to be a liability on the defensive end of the ball or end of the floor. He used to be a liability. It was Casey's too small. Casey doesn't give enough effort on the defensive side. He doesn't shoot well enough to where it's worth it to keep him in there on the defense for what you lose on the defensive side of the floor. This season, it's completely different. Completely different. He's not a liability on defense. The guy moves around like a freak of nature on the offensive side of the floor with or without the basketball, and he's shooting it well. So you kind of have, I mean, once again, the evolution and the growth of guys on the team, most specifically Keisei Tominaga, to where he went from somebody that was shooting it pretty poor last year, while taking into account the expectation we had for him, and then having a defensive liability on the floor as well. You're sitting there going, he's undersized. He's not playing well enough to where it's worth taking a risk to have him in there going up against guards of the Big Ten. And it's just not worth it. This season, he's invaluable.
That dude's got to have the best cardio on the entire team.
Yeah.
Because he never stops moving on the offensive end, and he never stops moving on the defensive end.
I mean, invaluable is the perfect. They don't win that game yesterday without Keisei. No. They don't win a lot of these games that they've won without Emmanuel Bandamel and Juwan Gary without Keisei Tominaga.
Oh, exactly.
And I also will add this, guys. He's kept fans engaged. When you lose two of your starters, especially the caliber of Juwan and Emmanuel, that we were having conversations on the daily of what is the fan engagement going to be like? Will people still go out to PBA?
How full will PBA?
Now, granted, it helps that they've won games, but it was a heck of a crowd yesterday. Yeah. And it was also why every single moment Keisei does something, Twitter freaks out. Yeah. Like people are still watching Nebraska
when he pump fakes from the logo.
Yeah,
everybody gets out of there. So,
yeah, he's keeping Husker fans interested and engaged in Husker basketball, which is difficult to do because with Nebraska being so poor the last couple of years, it's a quick checkout. It's a quick checkout. Oh, there's a Husker game today. That's great, but I'm not going to plan my day around it. And I'm not sure Nebraska fans are there quite yet either. But it at least it's like, hey, we're gonna have it on in the background. And if something crazy happens, we're gonna stop what we're doing. Yesterday, they were down by 17. We had it on the background. We were playing cards. They ended up coming back. It was like 47-40. I go, wait a minute. Let's just pause. Everybody go out to the living room. We watch the rest of the game. Things like that is happening around Lincoln. It's keeping he is keeping fans engaged by not only his effort but also what he's doing on the floor.
It truly is. Let's jump into break real quick. And then we'll come back with more. It's the Husker Rewind here on 93.7 The Ticket.
Nutrition Authority presents Fusion 30, an ultra-clean protein powder ideal for anyone wanting to look better, feel better, or perform better. Fusion 30 can only be found at Nutrition Authority. Stop in today for a free sample, visit with a certified nutritionist, and get better than internet pricing. For store info, visit mynutritionauthority.com.
I'm Brian. At 58, doctors told me I had the heart of a 37-year-old man. They told me that after my heart transplant surgery. Smoke. Here are some tips in case that happens to you. First, you have to quit smoking before you can get on a list for a transplant. So quit now and never feel sorry for yourself. I don't. I only feel sorry for that 37-year-old man.
Call the Nebraska Tobacco Quit Line, 1-800-QUIT-NOW, 800-784-8669. Paid by Tobacco Free Nebraska. Aired with the Nebraska Broadcasters Association and this station.
Stop asking your friends if they're hosting a party this Sunday and for the party instead. Join 93.7 The Ticket Wings and Rings at 68th and O this Sunday and walk away with great prizes just for showing up. Why worry about making a great spread of food for the game at your house when you can enjoy all the great wings and more at Wings and Rings? It's the big game party with 93.7 The Ticket at Wings and Rings this Sunday at 68th and O.
Early break with Sip and Jake.
4th and 1 is what?
Fourth and 1 is just a sense of urgency and a sense of preparation, which means 4th and 1 is really important. Have you prepared to be in 4th and 1? So that was a heavy Ed Ogeron. That was a heavy Urban Meyer. Like that. It was 4th and 1 every day.
Oh boy.
So February 19th, it wasn't like, yeah, we're cool. We're all good.
Right.
No.
Early break with Sip and Jake from 6 to 8 every weekday morning on 93.7 The Ticket.
For a good, hearty meal, the worries of the world slip away. Time slows down. Nothing but good times and company. That's what you get with Mary Ellen's Food for the Soul. Mary Ellen's does food right, with a menu that includes smoked wings, pulled pork, brisket, catfish. And don't sleep on their sides. Shrimp and grits, collard greens, baked beans. It's food that makes your heart happy. Mary Ellen's Food for the Soul, just east of 27th and Pineland. Let them fix you a plate.
Your home should not be a zoo to unwelcomed animals. Let the experts at Bats to Rats take care of those problems. Dane has been a leader in wildlife and pest management and prevention in Lincoln and the surrounding area for 15 years. He can help you get rid of bats, rodents, and anything else. Whether it's residential or commercial buildings, schools, apartments, or churches, they're always a phone call away. Call today at 402-310-0904 or visit batsrats.com. Bats to Rats Wildlife Control and Prevention.
I'm Austin now. We're in the Sunday. Back to the Sunday Rewind with Tom and Mike on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Welcome back to the Husker Rewind here. Sunday afternoon. It is Super Bowl Sunday. Tom is out. My name is Mike Melby, and I invited some friends to join me. Jake Bachhofen, Rico Cleary, hello, Nick Center, and some sweet and spicy wings.
Sir, these wings are so good. I can't.
Thank you.
I can't. It's so good.
I spilled on myself.
So
If you see a stain on my sweatshirt.
How many bad habits have you had?
Just the one, Mike. This is water now. But no, if you see a stain on my sweatshirt on the stream, it's from the wings, I promise.
I'm keeping the food far away from the jersey because this is the jersey I got for Rachel. a little Patrick Mahomes action. I got it for Rachel after their Super Bowl win. So making sure that I keep this clean. This was hanging up in our living room for the past 2 weeks.
She probably doesn't even know you took it.
No,
she's watching the show right now. And go, wait a minute.
She goes, you can wear it for your little show. And I was like, oh, okay.
Oh, thank you.
I was like, I'm not going to wear it for wings rings. I don't want to get it dirty. She goes, no, you're not. So,
that's awesome. Hey, Bach, I want to ask you something. You've done most of the Hoops post games with Strick and DP, and because I haven't been able to listen to all of them, and I've jumped on a couple of times. But what has it been like with Strick with the way this season has gone? Because Strick is always super realistic, but he always has optimism.
Yeah,
and I just walk me through it's had to have been some weird shows.
Well, I mean, we've done it the last couple years, and it kind of comes down to there's too many losses over the last couple of years, and it's kind of strange. And DP will thank us every year. Say it's got to be tough coming in here every day, or every game and doing those. But so hats off to Strick for doing that with us. But yeah, I mean, he's always at least got some sort of optimism, and certainly, he's played the game at the highest level. He sees it in a very unique way, and so. He can break it down regardless of what things go well or not. But I know that he's, and so it's basically that. I mean, he's always got, critiques that maybe the normal person might not see, but he does have the optimism and he keeps it going. And I think he, as well as with all of us, he wants to see this place succeed. I know Nick brought up the fan support that was there yesterday, and I think that's great. If you're kind of looking, from Trev's perspective and keeping Hoiberg and all that, but at the same time, I always think, man, imagine if this program was good. I mean, because you almost feel bad for 14,000 people. I don't feel bad when it's awesome to show up for a team that's 11-14, but it's just crazy to think what the city would be like if they got it rolling.
The one thing that I've noticed he has done on some of these post-game shows is whether it's Sam Greasel or Derek Walker, whoever it is, he'll go, if I happen to be walking down the street and I bump into him, I might pull him aside and say, the reason you're missing your free throws is, and he like just these minute little breakdowns. And so that's the one thing, and to encourage people, man, you got to tune into the postgame show. You'll learn a little bit. You play some pickup hoops, just listen to Eric Strickland, and you'll learn something about your own game on how to do something better or whatever. Because he's talking about that little pause, and somebody shooting when they're on their way down, as opposed to the peak of the jump and all that type of stuff. And it's all these little nuances that I'm not going to notice.
You'll be playing pickup hoops and your friends will be like, how much you been practicing? Like, what's going on? No, I just listening to Strict Talk.
Yeah, that's what it is.
You're talking about the free throws, and I tweeted it out. It was hilarious. They get into overtime, and all of a sudden Nebraska knows how to shoot free throws. It's the weirdest thing. Like they're such a I made the terrible decision to actually look at the free throw percentages for each individual player. It's not pretty. It's really not. Like Casey Tominaga's at, I think 90%. This was all before the game. 90%, 90.1 or something like that. I think Sam Greasel was at somewhere around 60 or 70, and Derek Walker was at 44.
Yeah,
and I was like, oh, he was a good free throw shooter. We looked at last year's, and it was like 70 something. But the 2-3 years before that, it was in the 40s as well. So last year was an anomaly. This is normally what he does, which is just the weirdest thing. And I don't understand how a Division I, even professionals, basketball players are that bad at shooting free throws. And I guess, listening to Eric or listening to Strict Talk, it's just the small things, just the smallest little nuances and decisions that they make at the free throw line that really change everything.
And the other one stat, if you want to go dive into the stats, and I did before the show last week because it was kind of alarming. Derek Walker, come off of 21 turnovers in 4 games. And I proceed to break it all down. And in games that he's appeared in, and this number is not going to be too far off, especially after the 8 turnovers of the 15 Nebraska had yesterday, about 28% of the turnovers are Derek Walker when he plays.
He does have the ball a lot.
I get it, and I've heard the argument. Well, yeah, but he's a point center, blah blah. I'm like, no, because
have you noticed where most of them come from? It's when he gets to the free throw line, is trying to make a decision on whether he's going to pass it or drive, and then he does his spin,
and he travels.
And there's the travel, and after the first 2 or 3 times that it works or doesn't work, as long as he gets to the rim, whoever is wrapping around, their defender comes in, waits for the spin, swats at it.
Yep,
every time.
Yep.
So it's either a travel or he gets it stolen during his spin. Those are the 2 most common ways he turns it over.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's astounding that you've got somebody that struggles to, not turn the ball over as much as he does. That is so colossally important to the team.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny too, because you wouldn't think about looking at the centers. It's just the turnover ratio, but it's interesting, and it is equal. He has got 1 more turnover than assist this year.
Well, and because he passes so well, that's the crazy thing.
Yeah, with all those turnovers, you kind of trade it off for the passing that he brings to you.
Good for the bad.
He's usually got it's just a little bit of decisiveness, about two travels a game. Unforced turnovers were a headache early in that game. Obviously, he was part of that, but who knows? Maybe at some point Nebraska will find a true point guard to bring into the state.
Well, Strick's talked about it, that free throw line when he has it, when he's trying to make that decision. If he can make that jump shot, which I believe he can, that would open up everything.
I thought he could, but the fact that he hasn't taken it yet. The teams have been falling completely off him, and he won't take it. And then, combine that with his free throw struggles, you're like, oh, maybe that's not his area of the court.
it's so open every time.
Yeah.
And if he could just hit 1 or 2 of those in a game, that opens up everything. The paint is wide open for him. He'll be able to make that spin move against 1 defender, not 2. He'll be able to get those easy layups. Great touch around the rim he has. It just comes down to a simple free throw line jump shot.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking, guys, I remember post Illinois. It was the Illinois game where they got beaten at home by 20.
Mm-hmm.
And Nebraska, I remember calling into the post game show back with you, or I can't remember who it was specifically, but I sat there and I was like, you watch Illinois and you watch, just years past, you watch like Rutgers when they had the guy Ron Harper. Like you watch these guards in Nebraska, it's sort of changed, but back then, just a couple weeks ago, they don't have a guy that defenses have to worry about nonstop. Like, and Casey's starting to get to that point right now. But for Illinois, for example, Terrence Shannon Jr., they don't have that guy. They don't have a guy like that. Like where Bryce McGowan's was last year, they don't unfortunately don't have it. So, and Derek Walker, a big man, can be in this position as well. A guy that draws 2 defenders every time he touches the ball. Every time he touches the ball, he draws 2 defenders, especially when the 5 is out there of Sam Griesel, CJ Wilcher, Wilhelm Breidenbach, Derek Walker, and Keisei Tominagi even, if you want to put those 5 out there. Keisei's the best shooter, right? And so, yeah, if he gets it on the perimeter, he might draw a second defender in the corner or something like that. But anybody else on that floor, if they get the ball outside of the paint, you're sagging off, or you're only having 1 defender, which doesn't open up the rest of the offense for Nebraska. I mean, Illinois killed you because they had a guy, Terrence Shannon, obviously, who drew a double every single time, or at least drew help defense from the backside. Well, that leaves the opposite corner wide open. And Illinois had a guy that was shooting 67% from beyond the arc from the corners specifically. That's the only reason. I will never forget the Illinois beat writer that traveled to Lincoln that day turned to me and goes, "That's the only reason he's in, shooting 68% from the corners."
Sits in that corner.
That's all he does. But because of a guy like Terrence Shannon, they're able to open it up. Same thing goes with Derek Walker. If Derek Walker is able to establish either a mid-range or had a bigger post presence, right? Not to say he doesn't he doesn't affect the game, because he does in a big way. But if Derek Walker is able to extend his range a little bit, he might draw help defense, which opens up the backdoor cuts that are there, or might open up Sam Griesel to be able to get it for an easier dribble drive. Like, everything can always run through one guy, it seems like, if they draw a help defense. It opens up everything.
And I'll throw a name out that they could have had the doctor signed off. That is that guy.
Come on, man.
Keontae Johnson.
No, don't have to do that.
Thank you.
You don't have to do that.
I just saying.
Yeah. It's frustrating. It's frustrating how that whole thing went down.
So I threw some topics out to you guys on the Super Bowl, because it's a big game. We got to talk about it. You got a big watch party down at Buffalo Wings and Rings, Meridian Park, 70th and L. Make sure you are there early, but don't take Rico's seat. Make sure you save it.
Yeah, save it. Well, not just me. It's a family.
True.
Yeah, me too.
And Nick, you mentioned this a little while ago, and one of the things I wanted to talk about is, like, who's your favorite team and why? And you said earlier that you really didn't have one until the beginning of this year.
Yeah.
Please explain. I do not know.
Okay, so it's gonna sound bad.
It's a dumb story.
It's so stupid. It's so dumb.
But it's great. This is how
fandom starts.
Exactly.
This is how fandom starts. And people on the text line will call me a bandwagon. I never watched Hard Knocks. Never have. Still to this day, haven't watched the Detroit Lions one on Hard Knocks. I like Dan Campbell from what he was saying in just press conferences and highlights that I saw on Twitter. One of my favorite NFL players, current NFL players, Amon-Ra St. Brown. He's a guy that I've personally followed since he was in high school at Mater Dei High School in California. He was a Husker target. He was a 5-star wide receiver. Obviously, Equinemius is his brother, who went to Notre Dame. And Amon-Ra St. Brown ends up going to USC. So you're fine. Okay, whatever. You're not going to keep tabs on a USC guy. And I didn't necessarily keep super close tabs, but if his name popped up, I'd be like, oh, I remember his recruiting story. And then he ends up getting drafted to the Lions. Loved his rookie year. Loved watching Amon-Ra in his rookie year 2 years ago. And so at the beginning of the season, I was like, you know what, guys? Like, I'm feeling good about the Lions. Like,
we were
I
talking
feel
fantasy football.
We were talking
also.
fantasy football, and I said one guy that I will reach for is Amon-Ra St. Brown. And also DeAndre Swift had a good year in 2021, and like he was kind of really more shaping up to be an RB1 in the NFL. It's like, they get a decent quarterback in Jared Goff, and they draft the offensive line with Penei Sewell from Oregon. And it's like, all right, you know what? Like, the Lions might be cooking a little something here. I like Dan Campbell. I like Amon-Ra. I like the pieces. So we're talking. Rico and I just one day when we needed a random topic, we did over under win totals
for poopy teams,
for really bad teams.
I chose the Falcons.
He chose the Falcons, and I was like, you know what? And we set our over-unders at it. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to go over 6.5 wins for the Detroit Lions. I was like, I think I'm going to take the Detroit Lions. That's going to kind of be the team I ride with this year. Watched them every week, started paying attention to them, and it ended up being a good season to start paying attention to them because, man, that win in the last week of the season against Green Bay was fun to watch. It was fun to watch. But, so am I a diehard Lions fan? No. But if there's a team I'm cheering for, it's the Detroit Lions. And that's as authentic as it was. It was prior. It was prior. It was prior to the season. And what's even crazier is that they lost 6 games in a row. Yeah. I was like, oh, there's no way. I'm still gonna ride with them. There's no way they hit that over 6.5 wins. Then they rattle off, I think it was like 7 wins in a row.
All the wins.
It was like, all right, sweet, this is good. So Jared Goff had a really good year for Jared Goff, so it worked out.
Jared Goff had a good year on Jared Goff standards, but yeah, still a good year for
him. I was all about it, so it was fun. So
now you have a DeAndre Swift jersey.
So now DP on Friday gifted me an autographed DeAndre Swift jersey.
That is fantastic.
So
now he is.
So now I am a Lions fan, and so now Dan Campbell will take us.
Yes,
to the Super Bowl
and all the kneecaps that he's bitten
and all the kneecaps. No, I mean, but also Jameson Williams from Alabama, the Alabama wide receiver, is there. He was just injured for half of the year this season in his rookie year. It gives me a team to cheer for, and I found out that the NFL is much more enjoyable to watch every Sunday when you have an NFL team.
Exactly. Except if you're in Arizona.
Yeah, unless you're.
Yeah. Okay, so Cardinals for you, Bach.
Yeah. Well, when I was younger, I went to the Nebraska-Arizona State game. I believe it was 1995, or because in 1996 they lost in Tempe. So I saw Jake Plummer, and I really liked Sparky. So I kind of liked Arizona State, even though they got blown out by Nebraska. It didn't matter. But that was kind of my first introduction to an athlete named Jake. And there weren't many of them. So when he went on to the Cardinals, I just started paying attention. I was young, so the time period might not quite match up with what I'm saying, I guess. But eventually, basically, like 1998, they made the playoffs. Fooled me. That's kind of when I really got into the NFL. Oh, there's Jake Plummer, Jake the Snake. It was really cool. They've sucked ever since. No, they were all right. They're all right there with Kurt Warner for a few years. They had the Super Bowl where actually, as a Nebraska-Arizona fan, I always point out, especially hard for me because the Ben Roethlisberger pass to Santonio Holmes, right over the outstretched arm of Ralph Brown, former Husker, and one of my favorite former Huskers that played for the Cardinals. Yeah. But
he only had 1 foot down.
Yeah,
but the Cardinals won that Super
Bowl. They should have won that Super Bowl.
And now the Cardinals can't find a head coach because nobody wants to deal with Kyler.
That's what people are saying, but
that's true.
It's not true. They're going to hire the Eagles defensive coordinator. It looks like after that.
Like, yeah, and the Eagles offensive coordinator is going to the Colts.
Yeah.
Wow.
The Eagles stripped of parts.
That's right. Eric Bieniemy still might make not a lateral move, but a move to stay in the same position. That's what I meant by lateral.
Either OC at the Ravens or the Commanders. I think that's the latest one that I've heard.
Yep, Ravens and Commanders.
I'm a Patriots fan. When my don't be. I have 6 Super Bowls in my lifetime. When my sports brain turned on, Tom Brady was doing his thing. Really, it was his 3rd year, and they were making a Super Bowl run. Shout out to Drew Bledsoe getting hurt. But that, just watching a really good team, and my grandpa was just like, I hate this team. And I was like, all right, I love them. That's really how I got all of my favorite sports teams, is that my grandpa disliked them so much that I decided that I would root for them, so then we could have a rooting interest against each other. So I just became a Patriots fan in the very early 2000s, and I've rocked with them ever since, and it's been really good for me. And now it's bad, so it's okay.
And Drew Bledsoe's the answer to the trivia question of who did Tony Romo replace?
Exactly,
as the starting quarterback for my team, the Cowboys. And it's just 7 years old, 7-4. Lived in Dallas for a year. First NFL game, Cowboys and Packers. Roger Staubach, Robert Newhouse, Ed Too Tall Jones, Randy White, Drew Pearson, and I fell in love. And since the Super Bowl run in the 90s, we've sucked or choked. So, and until Jerry Jones is no longer the owner of the team, I don't see that changing. Dak Prescott is not my quarterback. I do not like him as our quarterback.
Jeez.
I never thought he was a franchise guy.
What about Ezekiel
Elliott? Not a big fan. Okay. Tony Pollard is 10 times better back, especially the last 3 years.
If you weren't a fan of the team that you are currently a fan of, who would you be rooting for in the NFL?
I'll be honest, as I've gotten older and then spending 15 years doing play-by-play for a specific team and doing sports broadcasting type stuff, you lose the fanness in everything. And I have found that I simply root for the best story anymore. Like, to me, the Ndamukong Suh getting the second Super Bowl, if he wins today with the Eagles, that's a great story. Mahomes, high ankle sprain, whatever, against all odds, against that defensive line, somehow pulled it out. That's a great story. I'm not really cheering for the team. I'm cheering for a great story to come out of the game. And so I don't know who I would be a fan of or who I would be like anybody else, though, if I was not a Cowboys fan. I would despise the Cowboys. Yeah, because
because you kind of hate them now as you like them.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah, even their own fans hate them.
I am ride or die Lions.
Okay, whatever. No second team.
No second team.
So, and this is just a weird thing that was also happening. No, it's not. It'd be the Ravens.
You have said that before.
If I wasn't a Patriots fan, I'd be a Ravens fan. No idea why. I think it's Ray Lewis and Ed Reed. Just loved them so much. I loved watching the Ravens play, and for the longest time, if the Patriots had to face anybody in the playoffs outside of Peyton Manning, I said, please, dear God, don't let it be the Ravens. Because they just could not figure out a way to beat them. Ed Reed knew Tom Brady like a book. Ray Lewis would stop everything. But I don't know why. The purple and the black it kind of draws you in.
See, my second team has been the Steelers for a long time because my first team wouldn't make the playoffs most of the time. But then it matched up there in the Super Bowl. But the last time I bought a NFL jersey, I was like, I don't know, 12, 13, 14 years old, whatever it was. It was Larry Fitzgerald's rookie year. So I was thinking, do I want Larry Fitzgerald? At the time, they actually had Emmitt Smith. So I thought maybe about getting the Cardinals Emmitt Smith jersey, or one of my favorite players in the league who I liked better than both those guys was Hines Ward.
Yeah.
Absolutely loved Hines Ward with the Steelers. And I ended up going with Larry.
You seem like a guy that would like Hines Ward.
Oh, great blocking.
Did you watch him on Dancing with the Stars?
I did not.
Oh, okay. The only NFL jersey I've ever bought was a Indianapolis Colts Peyton Manning one. And it was right after he got traded, so it was on sale.
Nice. That's awesome.
But that's because I liked Peyton Manning growing up. I mean, because like his run with the Colts was right when I was like starting to watch football. And so he was like the guy when I started to watch football. He was one of the better quarterbacks. He played the Bears in the 06 Super Bowl. 06 or 8. It was one of those. And that was the first Super Bowl that I vividly remember was the Indianapolis Colts and the Chicago Bears.
Yeah.
First matchup of two African American head coaches.
07.
So yeah. 07. Okay, so close.
Cheat sheet here.
Devin Hester took the opening kickoff back for a touchdown.
That's right. It was on NBC.
Let's jump to break. It's Husker Rewind on 93.7 The Ticket.
Husker Nation, Amy Williams and Nebraska women's basketball needs you February 18th at 1 p.m. as the Huskers take on the Iowa Hawkeyes. We need your help to sell out Bank Arena for the first time ever. For event information, visit huskers.com/go.
Can you believe how can they survive? Well, they are surviving by charging way too much and making you believe there are no cars available. I'm here to tell you that they are all to Price Right in Westo, and you'll find over 100 great vehicles at some great prices. We won't let you get on them, and since we back vehicles with our peace of mind 3-month warranty. If you free car buying experience, check out our website, PriceRightAuto.com. Come see a great selection of affordable used cars on Westo Street at Price Right Auto.
Listen up, guys. Valentine's Day is almost here. And we need a touchdown, not a field goal. You need a personal florist so you don't drop the ball. And Petal Creations can be the MVP for you this year by helping you impress lady in your life with a heart box of love display of roses. Trust me on this one. This play call will result in a touchdown. Call Petal Creations today to reserve your flowers at 402-423-6500 or go to petalcreations.com.
The place you call home should always be a place of comfort. Warm and cozy in winter, cool and relaxing in summer. If your home isn't delivering the comfort you expect, call Bryant. It's just hot and cold to them. It's about providing the best comfort solutions. And Bryant gives a full 24-month test drive on your home comfort system. Get full details at BryantLincoln.com or call 467-1111. Bryant Air Conditioning, Heating, Electrical, and we do whatever it takes.
Ever think of having a career in plumbing or heating? Do you enjoy watching your favorite game in a nice, comfortable space? Taking a shower after a warm day? Well, everyone we serve at Biggerstaff Plumbing, Heating, and Air sure does. If you're interested in a career in plumbing, heating, and air, come join our team where you'll get paid while trained. No experience required. Enjoy great pay and benefits in a friendly environment. Call Biggerstaff Heating and Air at 402-468118 or apply online at biggerstaffs.com.
Hi, Sean Callahan here, Bracopple Chevrolet GMC, wanting to say Happy New Year and thank you to your continued support. We have just closed out another outstanding year. We want to start 2023 off with the new GMC It continues to roll in, and I'll actually be picking up my 2023 GMC later this month. So, with interest rates continuing to climb, Koppel is partnering with General Motors and offering 0.9 APR on select models. So we invite you to the dealership. Check us out online at koppelcars.com. You'll be glad you did. All deals with approved credit.
This is the Sunday Rewind on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Welcome back to the Husker Rewind. I'm Mike Melby. Tom Stevens is out today. Rico, Nick, and Jake all stopping in to kind of have some fun here on Super Bowl Sunday. Don't forget, head down to Wings and Rings this afternoon for the watch party with 93.7 The Ticket. I guess we're gonna have two sheets with 100 squares and boatloads of prizes.
Yep. And so I can't remember. I always forget until we get there on how the process is, where it's like the last digit of the numbers. So we have it numbered off on each vertical and horizontal 0 through 9, and it's whether or not the last digit of the score of each score. You kind of take the vertical, you take a horizontal one, and you meet it in the middle, and whoever's name is on that box or that square wins a prize. So we're going to have, double the chance. If you are on the first sheet, I think if you're one of the 100, you could get your name on there again. Yeah. So if you are already on the Super Bowl square sheet and you are looking for more opportunities to win, be one of the first 100 people. And I hope you don't get the same square, but if you do, I guess, and you win, then that's double the prizes for you.
Congratulations to you.
Yeah, exactly. But if you were one of the first 100 at Buffalo Wings Rings on 16th and 0, here a little after 4:30 or so, we'll be able to hook you up with another square. A lot of cool prizes.
We one of the other topics they threw out for kind of a roundtable discussion is commercials. And Nick, I know you said you don't have a great memory on the commercials, but we were just kind of joking around with a couple of them. I always thought some of the Doritos commercials were fantastic, and they did a Take Back the Super Bowl or some kind of a weird promotion. What did they call it here? Doritos crashed the Super Bowl, and they had fans of Doritos make their own Doritos commercial. And two of them that stick out. One of them was the time machine.
I love that one.
Where the little kid's like,
he's like, time machine. He's kicking the box. And he's just going, he's like, put your Doritos through the slot. And he puts the whole bag and then he just runs away. The dude comes out and some old guy's like, get off my lawn. Goes, Jimmy, you're so old.
So funny.
They were wearing the same shirt. Like the little kid and the old dude were wearing the same shirt. So it's hilarious.
And then the other one was the one where the wife is getting an ultrasound. And the dad is standing there eating a bag of Doritos, and he'd move the chip, and the baby'd move, and so he'd move it again, and the baby'd move, and then he moved it fast, and the baby bumped his head, and he laughs and thinks it's funny, and then he throws the chip, and the baby was born.
Yeah, you just dang, and then the baby crying.
That's awesome.
What else? And I told you guys a Super Bowl commercial from back in the '80s was the Wendy's "Where's the Beef" commercial. That was the Super Bowl commercial. I did not know that. So I was kind of going through doing a little bit of research for this today.
That's crazy.
I have the closest I ever came to $1 million was 2 years ago in the Super Bowl. They had the Super Bowl commercial. Is this awful Mountain Dew product? I don't know. It was like watermelon something or other. But you had to count how many Mountain Dew bottles were in the commercial and then tweet at it.
With John Cena, right?
Yeah. And you got 3 attempts to do it. I just did 1 attempt. I just ran. I didn't count them. Just randomly thought shot at $1 million. So I threw out the number 342. Nobody guessed it. Like nobody tweeted it. It like took days for somebody. They said they kept reminding people like, "Hey, we didn't give out $1 million yet." Somebody, because all these guesses came, nobody got it wrong. Ended up it was 243, the inverse of my number.
Oh wow!
And I just randomly came up with that number. So I was like,
Mountain Dew had one as well that was funny Super Bowl commercial with the puppy monkey baby.
I remember that one too.
That one was the weirdest, and I
know. It
like,
was great. It was just memorable.
Puppy monkey baby, and it's just like, what is this? It's like the body of like a baby with like a monkey tail and like a pug face, like, and it was just like walking around and like gave him Mountain Dew and like walked out, and I was like, what is happening right now?
I'm more often astonished at Super Bowl commercials that they don't have more creativity. Like some of them, usually they'll have, especially if they spend a lot of money to get some celebrities in there, and they just kind of think like, this has got to be something. You're paying millions of dollars to put this on TV. This has got to be something that you've spent months and damn near a year. I would have a whole department if you're going to spend that money on your Super Bowl commercial. And it's just like, That's all right. I'll
Some of
forget
them are
about
just
it.
like normal commercials.
Yeah.
But it's just like, I want it on during the Super Bowl. I'm going to pay extra to put this regular commercial that we've been putting all year in the Super Bowl. And it's like, that's not impressive.
Do we know what slots are going for this year?
It was the highest ever. It was insane. $8 million for a 30 or something like that. I mean, it was crazy. One of the ones that, speaking of, you're going to put together this big commercial for the Super Bowl. One of the best ones, if you see the full blown, I think it's a 90-second ad. It's a Tide commercial, and it's the dude who is on Stranger Things, the sheriff. I can't remember his
David
name.
Harbour.
David Harbour. And they're sitting there talking. He's like leaning up against the fence. He's got a cowboy hat on, and they're talking about whatever, and kind of streaming down what would be an ad for a pop or a beer, and it's like, nope, it's a Tide commercial. See our clothes, spotless. And then you'd see some guy, and like everywhere they go, and it was always one where, it's him, and he's got one where he's like, and we're selling this, and he's all dressed in white. He's got clouds and fluff around him, and like in other words, kind of going, hey, yeah, those really weird Super Bowl commercials where you're like, who the hell said this was a good idea? Yep, let's do one of those. Let's do an insurance one. Let's do and the whole thing. Every time he's just like, nope, it's still just a Tide commercial.
So
go ahead, just the old Spice guy on the horse.
Oh, I love
that.
He's sitting there talking, and David Harbour's like, nope, still a Tide commercial. He's like, get off my horse.
So I was just looking it up. In 2021, it was $5.5 million for a commercial. In 2022, $6.5 million. This year, 7.3 for a 30-second commercial.
It's insane.
That's so disgusting.
It is.
No.
Steadily in 2008, 2.2. So just shows you how much it's grown over the last.
I remember a few
12
years ago too. I don't know if it was on Fox or what it was, but there was like local commercials that also were like, there was like small spots for local commercials, so the local stations could kind of prop up and make some extra money.
Like, hey, we're here.
Yeah,
exactly. I always thought the Snickers commercials were pretty funny, and the first one was like the end all be all was Betty White, and then Abe Vigoda was they're playing pickup football.
Yeah,
in a
you're
muddy,
not you
muddy
when you're
yard.
hungry.
Yeah,
And I'm sure we'll have the Clydesdales.
I don't know. They've been doing Clydesdales and puppies. I don't know which one they're going with this year.
True. Budweiser. Well, how about the frogs?
they need to bring back the frogs. That's when I think of Super Bowl commercial. That's what I think of.
Bud.
Yeah.
Yeah, Budweiser always has. They went like super feeling, like the one where the guy is laying in the stall and the horse is born, and the horse kind of wakes him up, and they're playing together, and he sends him off, and 5 years later he's a part of the Clydesdales, and the horse leaves, breaks away, and comes to see him, and you're sitting. You're like tearing up. You're like, that's a commercial.
And it's just like, hey, drink a beer.
Yeah. and the puppies and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Budweiser always has got, they bring their egg.
Maybe they have a marketing department all year.
Pretty safe bet there. We're up against top of the hour. Anything else you guys want to add on commercials?
No, I just they've been getting real emotional lately for whatever reason. Like I was telling you, I don't remember what the product was, but it was something about you're like growing up with this kid, and they didn't like grow all the way up, but then they get in like an accident or something, and it was just like super emotional. I was like, what is happening right now? And I'm pretty sure it was like for insurance or something. And I was like, why? This was unnecessary. You made me feel like I was a part of this child's life for 25 seconds, and then you just took them away from me.
Like those don't text and drive commercials, or if you ever have to you have to go watch one of those videos to get your ticket taken away. That's what
the Apple Watch one from last year, where it was like 3 separate accidents where this dude like floated out. They were just playing the actual 911 calls that they were calling from their Apple Watch.
I remember that.
The dude floated into the ocean like too far. Some farmer like fell into a hole and like broke his leg. And then I don't remember what the other was, like an accident, like a rollover crash or something. They played the actual 911 calls that they made from their Apple Watches, and it was just like they had like drones flying over wherever the call happened from. I was like, this is crazy.
That's nuts.
But it was cool. These people, they all lived. They're all good.
They didn't use any of them where it wasn't a good ending.
No, obviously. I wonder how,
All righty. Nick, thank you so much for hanging out.
Appreciate it, gentlemen. I'll see hopefully all of you at Buffalo Wings and Rings.
Yeah. Rico Bach, you going to stick for a little while longer?
Yeah, I can stay.
I might leave. I'm not sure yet. I'll give a call, see how the kids are doing.
Okay, good call.
Because it's her and the kids.
All right.
So
well, appreciate you guys stopping by for as long as you can. We'll be back with more Husker Rewind right after this.
This is Lincoln's home for sports talk on the FM dial. Also online at theticketfm.com.
On the internet.
KNTK FM Firth, 93.7 The Ticket.
A lot of work goes into making Nebraska, Nebraska. Keeping it green. Helping it thrive. Making it fun. Everything that goes into caring for our outdoors, from waters to wildlife, plays a big role in making Nebraska home. Learn how we help conserve our state's natural resources at outdoornebraska.org.
Paid for by Nebraska Game and Parks. Aired with the Nebraska Broadcasters Association and this station.
Meeting your goal of having a healthy diet has never been easier than with the Venue at Home Health subscription. Chef and health conscious and delivered right to your door every week. All you have to do is heat and eat. We offer delicious entrees, gluten-free pastas, fresh rice bowls, soups, salads, and more. Build your own package as a subscription to receive meals every week, designed to help you meet your dietary goals. Order your custom healthy meal package today at venueathome.net.
There's a lot of realtors in Lincoln, but don't get overwhelmed by all the names. Ben Bleicher with Professional Realtor Group at Berkshire Hathaway Ambassador Real Estate is your go-to option when buying a residential and commercial property. Ben's team offers unbeatable customer service and promises to make the buying and selling process as stress-free as possible. Call Ben today at 402-419-6309 for all your real estate needs. Ben Bleicher with Professional Realty Group at Berkshire Hathaway Ambassador Real Estate. No pressure, just professionalism.
Where will your path take you, traveler? To seek fortune in a new career? Or on a journey to distant lands for a well-deserved vacation? Wherever you go, one distraction could spell disaster. You can change your fate, adventurer. Don't drive distracted. Paid for by the NDOT Highway Safety Office.
Attention all Wings fans. 89-cent wings are back on Tuesdays at Buffalo Wings and Rings in Lincoln. Enjoy the best wings in town for boneless or traditional at a price that makes the whole family happy. And now at the Williamsburg Village Wings and Rings, you can enjoy $1.50 Coors Light, Busch Light Ultra every day after 7 p.m. and all day on Sundays. Get to Wings and Rings today and make sure to stop by on Tuesdays for 89-cent wings.
More of the Sunday Rewind is coming your way next.
60% of the time, it works every time.
On 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Welcome back to the Husker Rewind. I'm Mike Melby. Stevens is out of town today. And big thanks to Rico and Nick Center stopping in and hanging out with us for the first hour. Jake Bachhoven in studio with me as well. It's a little bit of Husker Rewind, but it's a big day, obviously, with the Super Bowl. And we've got a watch party going on at Buffalo Wings and Rings, Meridian Park, 70th and O. Get down there about 4:30, and you can be one of the first 100 people. You get into the 100 Square, the second one that you guys are doing. And then just come down and hang out with all the gang from 93.7 The Ticket. I know AD is going to be down there. DP is going to be there. You'll be there. Nick will be there. Rico and the whole family will be there. I think Harrison may head down. I may head down. It's going to be a place you definitely want to get to this afternoon. Buffalo Wings and Rings, Meridian Park at 68th and O. And we were talking Super Bowl commercials right before the break, and they always are so interesting. The ones that kind of just make you scratch your head and go, what was that and why? And as I was doing a little research on Super Bowl commercials, because I'm old and I've been alive for all of the Super Bowls, so I can't remember all of them. There was one that a lot of people say was the end-all, be-all, best Super Bowl commercial of all time, and it ran in 1984, and it was Apple saying, hey, we're a little tiny 7-year-old company that started in a garage, but we are going to reinvent what you think of 1984 because we're introducing the Macintosh.
Yeah, that's right.
And that was it was a weird space age like showing a little bit of the movie 1984, and it was a goofy spot. But for what it led to and where we're at today with PCs, and I mean, we all have PCs in our pocket right now because it's a
Right.
phone. But all that technology, that's, that was kind of like the catalyst. That's where it started. And everybody's like, that's the greatest commercial ever. And I remember, I don't remember seeing it initially. I've seen it on these lists for years and years, and I just don't think it's that cool of a commercial.
Well, I mean, I like the mix, the 1984
I get it.
thing, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think you're right. I think a lot of it's just kind of the legacy that the company has become. Probably is more memorable over time than it was at the time. I did want to ask you about this. Did you see so I didn't know the Mean Joe Green commercial was a Super Bowl commercial.
Yes.
Do you remember seeing that? Because that's another one that I think of, before my time. That's kind of the Super Bowl commercial that I hear talked about a lot.
That one, I remember watching it live, and I remember being upset because I wanted somebody from the Cowboys to be Mean Joe Green.
In that spot.
Yeah, it needed to be Ed Too Tall Jones, not Joe Green.
Yeah.
And I remember yelling at my dad, "How could you let him do this? Why isn't it Randy White or Ed Too Tall Jones? Why isn't it a Cowboy? It should have been a Dallas Cowboy, Dad." And he's just like, "Yeah, shut up and go out and play," or whatever.
Whatever.
But yeah, no, I actually remember seeing that one. One that I thought was really good from a couple of years ago was the T-Mobile one. When they were going about, hey, make sure you don't get drop calls and intermittent service and all that. And it was Adam Levine and Gwen Stefani talking. And she's like, "I'm ready to get back into the dating scene. I don't want some idiot country bumpkin. I want a smart guy and this, that, and the other thing." And, they say, "Hey, but if your network sucks, this is what you hear." And, it's bits and pieces, country and idiot and
Oh, that's right. I did. Yeah.
whatever. And then Adam Levine's sitting there at a diner, and here comes Blake Shelton carrying two big things of food, and he goes, "They're not nachos and wings; they are nachos," or whatever. And he's like, "I'm gonna go get some peanut butter or something," and he wanders off. And Adam Levine's like, "I got the perfect guy for you." And he shows up in the restaurant, and Gwen's like, "Are you kidding me?" And then she goes, "Are you wearing spurs?" He goes, "Yeah." She goes, "Did you ride a horse here?" He's like, "Duh."
And they're married, right?
Yeah, they're now married. Yeah, because this was a playoff in their relationship.
Yeah, that's right.
But that one was pretty good. I enjoyed that one. That was kind of a funny one. One of the favorite things I think every year for some people, Nick is not one of those people, but is Super Bowl halftimes. He said that's the part of the Super Bowl I don't watch. I don't really care about the halftimes. And I thought that I don't think anybody touches. I want to say it was 07. Let me verify. It was 2007. I don't think anyone will ever come close to putting on a halftime show that equals Prince playing Purple Rain in the rain. One of just the most spectacular performances ever. And some of these are just crazy. And when you go back, if you go Google Super Bowl halftime entertainment, a lot of it for the first, what was it? Where's the other sheet here? For the first, 21 Super Bowls, it was marching bands. It was the Georgia high school marching, or some high school marching band from Georgia or wherever. And then in 1988, Chubby Checker and the Rockettes performed at halftime. And then a couple of more years went by, and they had like a magician one year and some other.
Did they try
Yeah, they tried some other stuff. And then the first kind of what you would call popular current band to play the Super Bowl halftime was 1991 with New Kids on the Block. And then, do you know?
Heyday, right?
Yeah. Do you know who has appeared in more Super Bowl halftimes than anyone?
I don't. I can't say.
I was stunned. It is Gloria Estefan.
Huh.
She appeared as herself solo twice, and then with Miami Sound Machine.
Okay.
So she's actually been on 3 of them. Now, was Timberlake in New Kids on the Block, or was he in NSYNC?
He was in NSYNC.
Okay, so he's at.
But he's been in 2 of them now, right?
Well, then, yeah,
or at least
he may be 3 as well. Then,
yeah,
because I know NSYNC was there, and Timberlake did it himself in 2018. And
of course, he was infamously with Janet Jackson.
Yes, that was that was awesome.
2004.
Yep, 2004 was Timberlake, Janet Jackson, P. Diddy, Nelly, and Kid Rock.
And that's when they took a turn from like, okay, modern hits to let's play the throwbacks.
Yeah, and it was really funny because you go, I mean, I'm just going to kind of give you the headliner. Starting in 91, New Kids on the Block, Gloria Estefan, Michael Jackson, then a host of country artists, Tony Bennett, Patti LaBelle, Diana Ross, Blues Brothers with James Brown and ZZ Top. That was a hell of a show. Boyz II Men, Stevie Wonder, Phil Collins, Christina Aguilera, Aerosmith, NSYNC, U2, Shania Twain, Janet Jackson, and Justin Timberlake. Wheels come off, Nipplegate happens, and then it goes to Paul McCartney, the Rolling Stones, Prince in 07, Tom Petty, Bruce Springsteen, and The Who. So you have a 6-year run where the most current thing any of them had done was probably 15 years prior.
Yeah, played it pretty conservatively.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like the most conservative, boring acts ever. And I apologize if you love any of those bands or performers, but none of them are necessarily my cup of tea. And then they get back into it with a band that I guess I would have been nervous about if I was putting on a Super Bowl halftime show with the Black Eyed Peas and Usher and Slash.
That's right. Slash was there.
Exactly. And on that's just like, wait a minute. Don't give him a microphone. Just let him play guitar. But, with Usher, there's a guy that super, super cool individual, but you would figure you can trust. But, man, Black Eyed Peas, I would have been a little nervous with Black Eyed Peas. And then that next year was kind of crazy. In 2012, you had Madonna, Nicki Minaj, MIA, CeeLo Green, and LMFAO.
How that joke of a band group. I mean, I'm not saying they're a joke. They like their whole thing was they're a joke. That was their shtick. How they got to a Super Bowl halftime show, I'll never know.
I know, that's crazy. If you, from the ones that you've seen, or maybe whether you've gone back, had a whole lot of interest in it, Bach, who is, aside from Prince, who were some of your favorite performances?
Well, first, let me say I'm very excited. This might be the first year that I might be more excited for the halftime show than the game. I'm a big Rihanna fan. I'm really glad to see her get her spotlight here. I mean, she could have been doing, any one of these shows since like 2006. I mean, she's been on fire for years. So don't listen to Stephen A. trying to tell you Beyonce is better. I'm with Rihanna. So I'm excited about that. But as far as my favorite ones, I think there's something like I really like The Weeknd, the artist, but I did not like his show. I think there's something like halftime shows, you got to bring in other artists. Like there's certain ways to do it, right? So it doesn't even always go with my favorite artist necessarily, but I think of like Lady Gaga coming down from the top of the ceiling. Like you've got to have something pretty big. Katy Perry riding a giant lion. I mean, this is what I expect out of a Super Bowl.
Yeah, and Katy Perry's was so funny because the one dancer, Left Shark,
that's right, the Sharks
became so famous because not only, and in interviews, the guy has said, well, she told me to just, tells all of us, just be yourself and, be creative and do what you want to do. And she's very encouraging for us to do this. And that was cool. But I questioned whether or not this person was actually a professional dancer because he was so far offbeat and out of rhythm, it wasn't even funny.
Yeah,
I'm like, dude, like, is your earbud not working correctly, or are you getting feedback on a delay? Because you are not in rhythm here at all, nor do you have any rhythm. I mean, I'm one of the worst dancers on the planet, and I think I can dance better than this guy. But he became a little, pseudo celebrity for a while.
Yeah,
because of Left Shark, and I actually thought that performance was pretty wild. It was over the top and fun, entertaining with Katy Perry. But
one brought Missy Elliott in too, which is good for me. What I like to see. Also remember specifically the U2 halftime show shortly after 2001, the World Trade Centers. They kind of had everybody's names going up there, so that was very emotional. So I mean, those are some of the ones that kind of stick out to me as far as very memorable. But it's interesting. I mean, I think like last year's, I think you're going to remember that just because it's so recent. Maybe you don't put it up there, but to actually think of one time, again, going from Nipplegate, right, to eventually having Dre and Snoop Dogg and Eminem and 50 Cent and all that. I mean, that I can't. I mean, just imagine pitching that in 2005,
Yeah.
right after Justin Timberlake, you would have got run out of the room. So it's kind of cool to see where they're going with it, and who knows? Maybe there will be another Nipplegate or something like that, which will change these Super Bowl halftime shows forever. But big part of the halftime show, I think, especially for non-football people or people, kind of just in there for the party. It's a big deal, and I love it. I mean, it's like you get to see your favorite, or maybe they're not your favorite, but big time artists. I mean, this is as good of a concert as they're going to put on. That's what the whole idea is.
Well, it is one of the ones that stands out, and I've had people laugh at me, and feel free, I don't care. I think Tragic Kingdom is one of the all-time best albums in rock music history. I mean, not top 5 or 6, but I mean, it's
Yeah.
one that to me is in a top 15 type category. It's just phenomenal. And when No Doubt played the same year Shania Twain did, I thought Gwen Stefani's performance was spectacular, and critics hated it. And they're like, she can't sing, she's got this weird rhythm when she tries to dance, and on and on and on. It's like, if you don't think she can sing, then you've obviously never heard her, because she sounds live almost identical to the way she sounds on a CD or on a MP3 player, right? It's you may not like her voice, but don't say she cannot sing. And I thought the performance was fantastic. That's just always one that I was like, damn, that was good. And to your point on The Weeknd, I'm not a big fan of The Weeknd's music, but that was easily for me the single worst Super Bowl halftime performance ever. And like, it's light years worse than anybody else.
Well, and again, I understand it was during the COVID year, so maybe that's why I didn't bring in some extra help. But I mean, that's the fun part of it to me. It's like if I'm fantasy booking a halftime show, it's the surprise element. Who is there with him? And that's what I wanted with Rihanna. Rihanna has enough hits. She doesn't need anybody else, but I hope that she brings people in, because that's part of the surprise, the fun to me about the Super Bowl. Usually it'll get leaked but I haven't really seen a whole lot about who's going to be playing with Rihanna. So I think that's going to be the fun surprise that hopefully it happens. Because again, you will get a discount, and you will get points taken away from me if you don't have some other acts in there. And also with The Weeknd too, I think that mirror thing was a lot cooler to him, like a person being surrounded by all those mirrors, than it like came off on TV. So I think there was like some sort of idea where like they showed it to him, he's like, this is all we need, mirrors.
Well, I think he lives in a house that is every wall is simply a mirror, because I don't know that he lives outside of just himself. It's all about him. Like I said, he can sing great. I just am not a fan of the music at all, and whatever.
Yeah.
Bruno Mars, I thought a couple of years ago though. I'm not a huge Bruno Mars fan, but utmost respect for the guy for what he's done. He kind of took the helm, if you will, of the king of pop style of entertainment. I mean, Michael Jackson wasn't just a singer; he was an entertainer, and I always thought that Bruno Mars did such a spectacular job of stepping into that role if it needed to be filled. But I thought his Super Bowl performance was really, really good.
And I'm glad you mentioned Michael Jackson too, because I think that's kind of the standard setting, right? I think that was kind of, was it 92, somewhere around there, 93, outdoor stadium. If you go back and just kind of look up Super Bowl halftime shows, if you're just looking for them, that'll be one that pops up. And it's not all the stage and production that you'll see today. But it was freaking Michael Jackson
Well,
at the Super Bowl.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, when you go back, and I had to again this morning, go back and watch Prince's halftime show. And it's, I think they're playing in Miami outside in the Orange Bowl, and he starts Purple Rain, and it starts raining.
Yeah.
And you're like, there is no way that how did this happen? And I always had the utmost respect. It's funny because I'm a metalhead. My favorite band right now is 500 Death Punch, and I've always listened to hard rock, heavy metal. But my appreciation for Prince, and just because of his raw ability to do everything musically, and it's the one out of all of the shows I've ever been to in my life, and I've probably been to over 500 concerts if you include little bars or Wild Side and Cry of Love and Jackal and whatever, playing the Grove, and I mean all those shows as well. I've probably been to over 500 of them, but the one disappointment I have is that I never saw Prince live. It just is gone too soon.
Yeah, I didn't get the chance to.
Yeah, no, that one that was a big bummer. One of the best shows I ever saw live from an individual, because to me the concerts, a lot of it are about the front man and how they handle the show. How do you handle the room? Now, is the room a bar with 500 people? Is the room a theater, like the Bourbon, where you get 2,000 or 1,000 people? Or is the room an amphitheater with 27,000 people? How do you handle the room if you're a front man? And some of the guys that stand out, one of the all-time best is Jacoby Shaddix from Papa Roach. Always liked Papa Roach. Not my favorite band, but man, you sit there and you go through all their hits and you're like, holy smokes, have they been around for 400 years? Because they have a lot of songs I know. And they opened up for Shinedown a couple of years ago here in town. And it was Jacoby Shaddix owned the place. It was amazing. Now, Brent Smith of Shinedown came out, did he owned the place. But the best I've ever seen, absolute hands down best I've ever seen, Kid Rock.
Really?
Amphitheater in St. Louis back in 2015. And there was 27,000 people there. And I felt like I was watching him at the Grove.
Yeah.
He just simply owned the entire place. And it was a spectacular show.
Now he had a halftime show, didn't he? Wasn't Kid Rock involved in one?
Yeah, he was with
it's like 2004.
Yeah, he was with
he
got overshadowed by Nipplegate.
Oh, yeah, maybe that's why I don't remember it as well.
And the funny thing about that Kid Rock show, never a big Foreigner fan, but Foreigner opened up, and I'm like, damn, they're really good. Like, I was astonished at how good they were.
Yeah,
live.
It's crazy how often the opening acts to me, like whether you know them or don't, I don't know if it's just the fact that's kind of their spot in the concert. Like they feel like they're extra pressure to kind of like let you know that they're you came to see them too. I'm always astonished. It a lot of times seems to overshadow to me the main performer.
Yeah. And I still remember, go back to, I had tickets to the show in Omaha. Iron Maiden was the headliner. I'd seen them once before, the year before at the Civic up in Omaha. I was all excited. And they had this upstart band that, had one single that was opening up for them. The single just happened to be Welcome to the Jungle, and the band was Guns N' Roses.
There you go.
And they canceled the show like 3 weeks before the show because Iron Maiden essentially fired them because well over half the crowd was leaving when Guns N' Roses got done playing.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So they're selling, all of a sudden they go from, they start the tour and they're selling 65% of the stadiums the arenas that they're playing. And then it's 75. And then all of a sudden they're selling out every show. And there's like 10 shows that the first show sell out and 95% of the crowd are there to see Iron Maiden, and it's great and everybody's happy. And by show 10th consecutive sellout, over half the crowd is gone by the time Iron Maiden jumps on stage. And they're like, yeah, no, we're done.
We don't like that.
Yeah. So they went their separate ways, and GNR went on to be, one of the biggest and baddest bands. I was never a huge fan of them. I just don't like Axl Rose. Yeah. But the music obviously was it was industry changing.
Well, I wanted to ask you too, because you talked about the front man demanding the room. Have you seen Tool? I hear that they do the opposite of that.
Maynard James Keenan is one of the most unlikable people. I just am not a fan of his.
Yeah.
He walked into a local record store, like old school vinyl, when he played Pershing a long time ago. And the story I heard, and I've had a couple of people verify it, like he ripped down a couple of posters of himself that were up on the wall, and his handlers or his bodyguards or whatever, he didn't say a word to anybody. He just ripped them down, tore them up, left them on the floor, and walked out of the place. And that the bodyguards had to go get a hold of the owner or whoever and find out how much they owed him. But he's like, you don't have permission to sell my stuff. You can't sell my likeness. And it's just he's just kind of one of the,
he's just not a people person or
no,
something.
No.
I don't know.
I want to say it's Aaron Lewis, Stained, lead singer for Stained, is kind of the same way. He's the guy that like literally just kind of sits on a chair and sings.
Yeah.
Tell you what, one of the wildest shows, it was Metallica, Suicidal Tendencies, and Danzig, and they're playing at the racetrack at the Iowa Fairgrounds. And so, 30,000 people or whatever all packed into the infield, and they had the stage in turns 3 and 4 on the west end of the racetrack. Never been a big fan of Danzig. Danzig comes out, he sings 1.5 songs, and it is like he is Chucky Hepburn, and it is just a chorus of boos. And they literally boo him off the stage. He stops the second song he's playing. I won't repeat what he said because we'd all get in trouble. But he essentially said, here, I'm just going to play the stupid song you all came to hear me sing anyway. And he plays Mother, but he plays like a 90-second version of it, and it's super sped up. And then when he's, like, screw you people, blah, 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 and he walks off stage, and as soon as he walks off stage, everybody starts cheering. And one of his band kind of walked back on stage a little bit, and they started booing again. And I thought that was funny, but then the end-all be-all of That's Rock and Roll, Michael Muir, the lead singer of Suicidal Tendencies, it's a wooden stage, and he is an energetic frontman. And he ran across the stage and kind of slid on his shins. So, just like you would do, like the soccer players do.
Yeah.
And he hooked a nail.
Ugh.
And he ripped his leg open. And he proceeded to tell the band to keep going. You can hear him, and he's, whatever. Keep going. I'll be back out. And they carry him back out on a sofa with his leg all wrapped up. And it's elevated, and like they carry the sofa with him on it and sit him in front of the band, and he finishes like the last 4 songs of the set. And I'm like, that is so rock and roll.
That is awesome.
That's crazy. Let's see that happen at halftime of a Super Bowl.
Yeah, somebody injured playing through it.
So let's go ahead and jump into break. It's Husker Rewind. I'm Mike Melby, Jake Backup, and filling in for Tom Stevens this hour. Big thanks to Rico and Nick for jumping in the first hour. And we'll talk some more Super Bowl stuff coming up right after this.
Husker Nation. Wins in Nebraska women's basketball needs you February 18th at 1 p.m. as the Huskers take on the Iowa Hawkeyes. We need your help to sell out Pinnacle Bank Arena for the first time ever. For event and ticket information, visit huskers.com/tickets. Go Big Red.
Alexa, play 93.7 The Ticket.
Okay, playing 93.7 The Ticket.
Alexa, turn down the lights.
Dimming the lights.
Alexa, order a pizza. The big one. All the toppings.
Are you sure that's a good idea?
Alexa.
That's a lot of pizza for just one man.
Alexa, just do it. Stop judging me, just do it.
As you wish.
Thanks, Alexa. You're my best friend.
Papa, why can't we telegraph while riding a horse?
Son, there ain't no one to blame but Jeff. He was riding old Betsy the Stallion, tip-tapping away at his telegraph, when blam! Ran right into the saloon.
Well, if Jeffro can't do it, neither should you. Don't text and drive.
Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org. A message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, and
Victor deployed for the first time to Afghanistan in 2003. 4 in the morning, my phone rang. They said, I regret to inform you that your husband was wounded in action. Victor sustained a moderate traumatic brain injury, was doing school full-time, and I was also then caring for Victor. One of the most important elements of caregiving is taking care of yourself. I just didn't want to forget that I also had goals and that I also had a life. What I did is I challenged Victor to meet me halfway. There are almost 6 million military and veteran caregivers across the nation. We have our own journey, and we can fulfill that journey at the same time that we are helping our loved one.
Visit aarp.org/caregiving for a free military veterans guide to navigate your caregiving journey. Better care for your loved one and yourself. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Start your Sundays off right with Jeff and Nicole Essink on Fitness Fanatics. Jeff and Nicole discuss health and wellness, how to achieve fitness goals, and more through the life of gym owners and gym goers. It's Fitness Fanatics from 9 to 11 a.m. on Sunday on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Listen up, guys. Valentine's Day is almost here, and it's 3rd and goal, and we need a touchdown, not a field goal. You need a personal florist so you don't drop the ball. And Pedal can be MVP
this year, live your life, a heart box of love, display of roses. Trust me on this one. This play call will result in a touchdown. Call Petal Creations today to reserve your flowers at 402-423-6500 or go to Petal Creations.
This is Stay Rewind on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com. Now, here are your hosts, Stevens and Mike Melby.
There we are. Speaking of Five Finger Death Punch, welcome to the circus. Welcome back to the Husker Rewind. I'm Mike Belby. That's Jake Bachhoven and Tom Stevens out of town today. Super Bowl Sunday. We have got a big game watch party going on at Buffalo Wings and Rings, 68th and 0 in Meridian Park. And get down there about 4:30. Make sure you get a spot. A big host of the staff from 93.7 The Ticket are going to be down there. And it's going to be a fantastic time. Lots of giveaways, prizes, and just hang out and mingle with some former Huskers and some unbelievably fun people on the air with you and Rico and Nick and Harrison may be down there and everybody. It's going to be a blast. Big thanks to Buffalo Wings and Rings for having us come down for another year for the big watch party. We're talking Super Bowl commercials. We've got done with halftime shows. There is a game going on. Rumor has it today.
That's right.
And it's not all about commercials and halftime shows. For some people it is. That's all they're going to watch. But in the game, it's Patrick Mahomes' opportunity to live up to the anointing of one of the best ever after 2 years because he was a Super Bowl MVP and they won whatever. And now, after a couple of failures in the postseason, he has the opportunity to win his second, puts him in very select company of quarterbacks that have won two, and it gets him well on the road to being the next Tom Brady to win, his third or his fourth or his fifth, whatever. The flip side is you have a juggernaut and one of the most complete teams, not best offenses, best defenses, best special, one of the best teams the NFL has seen in a very long time in the Philadelphia Eagles, going against a guy who at times is a magician. And I said earlier on the show, this is a game that is going to be won in the trenches. And most games are. And as dominant as Philadelphia's defensive line has been this year, over 70 sacks. It's one of the second or third most all-time in NFL history. Hassan Reddick is literally at a level that you're talking Lawrence Taylor, Michael Strahan. He's playing at a level that is equal to some of the all-time greats. And then, oh, by the way, there's former Husker and Ndamukong Suh, who you just sit there and shake your head. Garrett McGuire, earlier this week on a press conference, alluded to his first memory of Nebraska. And it was essentially, even though he wasn't born or was like a year or two old, but like his first thing that he found out about with Nebraska, or no, I guess he would have been 10 years old. It was 2009. Was Holt McCoy being thrown around like a rag doll by Ndamukong Suh. And how unbelievably dominant he was in the game. I mean, it's crazy. He had like 11 tackles, 7 tackles for loss, and 4.5 sacks.
Yeah.
And you're like, so we were playing the JV team from Southeast Community College. Like, how is one person that dominant in major college football in a game?
Yeah.
And it was that way the whole year. And I mean, it should have been, he should have been at that time Nebraska's 4th Heisman Trophy winner, because Tommy Frazier should have won it back in 95, and Ndamukong Suh should have won it in 2009. I mean, just hands down.
Yeah, I am. I mean, I think that's what I'm most excited for this game. We talk about our NFL fandom and stuff, and I've always been more of a college football fan, kind of living through the Huskers and watching the Huskers and the pros, and I'll cheer for them, more so than the team. And for Sue, it's interesting because there's just kind of separate. There's different eras, kind of predating him were still, you had a lot of guys, he played with KVB, Kyle Vanden Bosch, and, the Amon Grains of the world and the Grant Wistroms. And it was just, from the Osborne and the Soldiers teams, always just studs in the NFL. And there's been a bit of a gap in that, and hopefully Nebraska is getting back to that. Now you see 2 second-round picks there this past season, both having good rookie years. One of them playing in the Super Bowl today, and so I'm hoping that Nebraska basketball gets back, or Nebraska football, excuse me, gets back to having studs in the NFL. But this might, I don't know if this is Sue's. This could be his last game.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of, it's interesting and somewhat, I don't want to say emotional, but he's a legend, and he always will be in Lincoln. And so I don't know if it will be his last game or not. Certainly he's kind of at the point in his career. He might sign somewhere late. I don't think he's going to play another full season again. But I would have to bet it's getting pretty close to that. And so it's just, anytime you get to see Sue strap up, is going to be, you should, don't take it for granted, because it's not going to happen a whole lot more.
No, it's not. And it's one of those where, hey, if you're going to pay me $5 million to come play 8 games and go through the playoffs, sure.
Yeah.
I'll be happy to skip training camp and all that. And it's been such a bizarre career for him as well. When he first came into the league, playing for Nick's now favorite team.
Yeah.
And, I know they were has so many injuries at one point, and one of them was place kicker. He actually attempted an extra point.
That's right.
But that shows you how athletic he is for being, 6'4" and 320 pounds.
Yeah.
And incredibly smart, but just, he was a bad guy because he was kind of a cheap shot artist.
Yeah.
His first handful of years. And, it was always one of those where you wanted to defend him, but you simply couldn't.
Yeah, sometimes you couldn't.
You're like, well, I still like him, even though he stomped on the guy, and it is what it is. But he also then ultimately earned the respect of even the people that were on the receiving end of some of that stuff, with just how hard he plays and how serious he takes it. And he's grown into, from a young man signing here at 18 years old and going through the coaching change and everything else, and deciding to stick around and stay and develop. And, he turns into genuinely one of the best defensive linemen Nebraska's had, probably outside of Rich Glover. He may be the best defensive lineman they've ever had. That's a great argument. People point to for his signature game, that Texas game. And in the Big 12 title game in 2009. And the argument is that no one's ever played that well in a game that was that magnitude. And it's always kind of funny because people forget Rich Glover had 22 tackles against Oklahoma, the number 1 team in the country, back in 1971.
Yeah.
Everybody remembers Johnny Rogers' punt return that they don't win without, but without Rich Glover's 22 tackles against, by the way, the best offensive line in the country, and I believe the guy that won the Outland, they don't win that game.
Yeah.
And I would argue that was a more impressive performance than Sue's. Sue's was just more entertaining because he was literally throwing Colt McCoy around like a rag doll.
Right. Those aren't just sacks. Those are, he's like beating them up back there.
That's punishment.
But I've also seen the argument too that Sue, and some would say it might result, today's results might matter too in this, is if he wins another Super Bowl, would he be, Nebraska's best pro NFL player of all time? I think he's got a little bit catching up to do to Will Shields, in my opinion. It is interesting because he's borderline Hall of Famer, and that's how good he's been. But I know some people that might surprise them. Well, he should be a shoo-in. He's not a first ballot. I think he's like a 5-time All-Pro type of guy, which in Pro Bowl, that kind of puts you in that category. And he's one of the best defensive linemen of the 2010s, absolutely. I don't think he's a shoo-in, as some people would think here, if you tie in his college career and his pro career. So I think it might matter a little bit. Sometimes it does to get those championships at the end. The fact that he already has 1 Super Bowl, if he can add, 2-time Super Bowl champion to his list of accolades, I think it could help.
Yeah, I truly agree. The one other guy I want to throw out from a former Husker that played in the NFL that you would have to have in the argument of, did he have the best pro career, is Amon Green.
Yeah.
He's still to this day the Packers' all-time leading rusher.
Oh, yeah.
You're talking about a storied franchise, and and then getting to play for two quarterbacks because he spanned both Favre and Rodgers. Being the running back for both those guys, man, that's something else. And he had to carry such a weight because those guys couldn't do what they did without a running game. And granted, they had a great offensive line, but I mean, Amon was just special.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because in the real world, my full-time job, one of the I work with various universities around the country and smaller colleges as well. And one of them, the guy that I work with, is call it staff director of the faculty at the university for their esports program. So him and I talk a lot about esports. I'm a bit of a gamer. I focus more on racing stuff than Fortnite and other games like that. But so I know a little bit about esports because we have great conversations. And lo and behold, Amon Green is back at Nebraska as essentially the director of esports.
Yeah,
and listening to him talk about it is just fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, that's a guy too. And I talk about living. In the kind of being more of an NFL fan or, watching the former Huskers, that was my guy as far as having a cool career. And Amon Green was always kind of cool too. He had extra pads on and the eye black. And, so he was just, that was such a fun career to watch. And I'm glad that he's back in Lincoln and hopefully can get closer to the Husker program because, you talk about a great running back that sometimes, I don't know, maybe gets a little overshadowed because Lawrence Phillips was there,
Yeah.
But the fact that he, had to follow him and people would still put Lawrence Phillips right up there with Mike Rozier as their all-time greats. Well, Amon Green's probably third in that discussion. And so you just kind of overlook him a little bit. If he would have came back his senior season, by the way, you might be talking about him right up there with those guys.
He may have won the Heisman.
Yeah.
If he would have come back for his senior season.
Doesn't get enough credit for the 97 championship either. I mean, he's the best offensive player on the national championship team.
Yeah. The fun thing, Tom and I started having a discussion either last week or 2 weeks ago on running backs. And, we were throwing out names that we grew up with. I Am Hip, Jarvis Redwine, Doug DeBose before the white powder got involved in his life.
Yeah.
Scotty Baldwin. Obviously, had chemical imbalance within the brain and had some demons that he fought that ultimately, cost him the ability to walk. But some of those guys, I mean, they were just insanely talented. And it's so fun to be able to talk about that and the history of it. And then to have EJ Barthol's, our running backs coach, who knows all these names. He's like, I grew up, this is RBU, man. This is running back U. And it's going to be again. And it's just, every guy on Matt Rule's staff is just simply sitting there saying every single thing that every diehard Nebraska fan wants to hear. So, but it also then stirs these conversations up. And right now, look at that running back room. That was the one room they didn't touch for the most part. In this recruiting class, you've got 41 guys that were not on the roster on November 1st. Whether they be a high school player, a transfer, a JUCO, or a guy that simply left football or one that went into the portal and came back. 41 guys, one running back. That was a room they did not touch.
Yeah.
And you've got Anthony Grant and A.J. Allen as the two probably guys that are going to battle it out to start. And, you start wondering who's going to be the guy.
Yeah.
Who's going to be the next guy that says, oh, by the way, I went to RBU. You know why they call it that? Well, because of me. They're maybe not that, but that's that. Who's going to be that guy? And I'll be honest with you, we saw flashes from Anthony Grant last year where you're like, yeah, it's going to be him. And we saw flashes from A.J. Allen where we're like, it's going to be him.
Yeah, he might take it. That's what you're thinking.
Yeah, so it's going to be fun and interesting to see what happens here. We got one more segment left. Let's jump out. I want to touch real quick on Nebraska basketball before we wrap up the show and then get a prediction from you on the Super Bowl. We'll be back with more after this on 93.7 The Ticket.
There's nothing quite like the Mercado by Certified Piedmontese beef. The Mercado offers unique ingredients you find anywhere else. Open every day from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. The free store is wonderful for meat lovers with their exclusive Certified Piedmontese beef and assorted sausages, plus other quality meats, including pork, chicken range of the freshest. 11 to 2, the Mercado serves up the best lunch in town on their Friday feast menu. Stop in at the Mercado today at 84th and Havelock, or visit their website at cpmercado.com to see current deals.
The Ticket Water Cooler.
8 Big Ten running backs in their top 25 returning in 24/7 sports. You can certainly argue that Anthony Grant could be in there. Nobody would bat an eye.
That's just because the Iowa running back ended the season on a higher note. I don't care about the end of the season. Look at the entire season. Anthony Grant had a great season.
The good news for Nebraska is if Anthony Grant does fall off, A.J. Allen looks like he's going to be there. Then you have Ramir Johnson, who led the team in rushing 2 years ago. And
Gabe Urban, who was your start 2 years ago.
So, I mean, they've got a great room.
Wall-to-wall wine and beer is now open in Lincoln. Shop our expansive collection of wine, beer, spirits, and cigars at 5040 North 27th Street. Top shelf liquor to crowd favorite beer. Wall-to-wall wine and spirits has a beverage for every taste and every budget. Plus, join our loyalty program to earn rewards and save on future purchases. Shop Wall-to-Wall Wine and Spirits at 5040 North 27th Street in Lincoln. That's 5040 North 27th Street.
Hi, Sean Callahan here, Bracabo Chevrolet GMC, wanting to say Happy New Year and thank you to all of you for your continued support. We have just closed out another outstanding year. We want to start 2023 off with a bang. The new GMC and Chevrolet inventory continues to roll in, and I'll actually be picking up my 2023 GMC later this month. So with interest rates continuing to climb, Koppel is partnering with General Motors and now offering 2.9% APR on select models. So we invite you to the dealership. Check us out online at koppelcars.com. You'll be glad you did.
Gentlemen, Valentine's Day is just around the corner. Don't be that guy running to the store for flowers and a card on your way home. Hey, Rick Heyman here from Sartor Heyman Jewelers. We have great Valentine's gifts in store now. And if you spend $99, we'll throw in a free bouquet of a dozen roses. Give her what she really wants this year and let us do the rest. Sartor Heyman Jewelers, your hometown jeweler since 1905 in Lincoln and Grand Island. Online at sartorheyman.com.
Can you believe all the empty car lots in Lincoln? How can they survive? Well, they are surviving by charging you way too much and making you believe there are no cars available. This is Carl from Price Right Auto. I'm here to tell you that they are full of bull stuffing. Come out to Price Right in West Elk. You'll find over 100 great vehicles at some great prices. We won't let you get a lemon since we back every one of our vehicles with our Peace of Mind 3-month warranty. If you want a hassle-free car buying experience, check out our website, auto.com. Come see it. On West Elk Street at Price Right Auto.
More of the Sunday Rewind is coming your way next.
60% of the time, it works every time.
93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Welcome back to the Husker Rewind. I'm Mike Melby. Tom Stevens is out today. Jake Bachhoven sitting in this hour. Jake was here last hour along with Rico and Nick Center, chatting about the big game today. They're having a game watch party down at Buffalo Wings and Rings, 68th and O in Meridian Park. Going to be a great time. Get down there about 4:30. Make sure you get a spot. Whole boatload of ticket staff will be down there. All kinds of prizes will be given away as well. The old school 100 square. Man, the way to gamble back in the 70s, the office pools. I used to work for a company that every single Nebraska football game, they had one. And then for the AFC, NFC championship games, and then the Super Bowl, we do a company-wide, 10 square. And,
is it similar type
square.
of deal?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, just the numbers across and all that. So, yeah, there's a bunch of degenerate gamblers that work there. So I was one of them. So
fair enough.
We had fun. No, but with the game today, it's interesting. You've got the one odd thing is within 10 seconds of the end of the Kansas City Cincinnati game last week, and we all saw, or 2 weeks ago, we all saw how not great the officiating was and how it seemed to really favor Kansas City. 10 seconds after the game was over, the play-by-play guy goes, "They've been calling this the Andy Reid Super Bowl." And I'm like, who's been calling it this? Because it's only been the Andy Reid Super Bowl for like 10 seconds. You know what I mean? Like it's like the NFL planned this and they've been talking about we're going to have Philadelphia and Kansas. And it's like, is that just whatever? No,
the officiating there, people thought it was scripted. And it's like, man, if this was scripted, think they get some of the bigger markets in. I mean, Philadelphia's big, but
yeah, exactly. Real quick, I want to touch on Nebraska basketball because the big win yesterday, coming back from 17 down, K-State Tominaga, two things. There are two people that one of them, a lot of people are on the fence about whether or not he should come back, and Fred Hoiberg. One that nobody's on the fence about that is a must-have no matter who the coach is here next year, and I think it's going to be Fred Hoiberg. But I want to know what your thoughts are. How important is it to make sure that K-State Tominaga comes back for his senior year?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and who knows? We got to watch the rest of the season. This is obviously a great stretch of games where he's got 25 points per game. But I think it's interesting. You wonder if Bandamel and Gary never go down, do we ever see this K-State? You know, he's kind of forced into being this volume of a shooter. But now that it's there, it's exposed. We know he can do it. I hope that it doesn't go away. And I don't expect him to average 25 every game. But, 20, 17, get up there. You know what I mean? He's got to be a scorer for this team, and I think it's going to be absolutely imperative to if you're going to keep Hoiberg, obviously, but these days in college athletics, Tominaga is a bit of a he's a Big Ten treasure. He could be a national treasure if he goes to Duke or one of those schools. So I think they're gonna have to do a little bit of making sure that. This is the place that give you the chance. Hopefully he appreciates that and stays and keeps it going. But yeah, I mean, I think that's the number one thing Nebraska basketball has going for it right now is K-State.
Yeah. And I don't know that he would transfer to a different school. Supposedly he was offered $500,000 to play professionally in Japan.
Yeah. But he's got that
season.
waiting for him one way or the other.
Yeah. And he does. But and it's the one issue with NIL that players that are here on a student visa, Jazz Shelley, Izzy Bourne, Nuri Nuwili.
Yep.
He's from Germany. He's here on a visa. He cannot get NIL money. So K-State, he's, you got a giant paycheck waiting on the other side of the Pacific. And, who knows? But the question, though, on Coach Hoiberg, we have 5 games left. Nobody's counting chickens. Nobody's whatever. There's still 2 games below 500. I think they got a shot to somehow figure out a way to get to 500. And if you're the NIT and Nebraska's sitting at, for the sake of argument, 16-16, do you not invite them knowing the fan base and give them a home game knowing that they're going to put probably 12,000 people in the building?
I would think so. I mean, I think it would certainly, raise some eyes, especially with their strength of schedule where it's going to be. But again, it's somewhat sad what Nebraska basketball standards are because it's not too high, right? But again, to me, if I'm as a Nebraska basketball fan that's kind of lived through it, my goal is to keep me interested going into Big Ten tournament play. And I always going to like the Big Ten tournament. You know what I mean? Like down the stretch, keep it interesting. And I didn't know if they were going to be able to do that this year, but they have. Now these final 5 games, I'm completely tuned. I want to see. I can't wait for Tuesday to watch their next game against Rutgers. Yeah. I want to see how this thing ends. I'm fully bought in, and that's what you need if you're Nebraska basketball. And then, take those incremental steps forward, which is another interesting question is, I think that they will keep Hoiberg like you do. But it at some point, you've got to start moving that bar upwards. So, like, what would next year's expectations be to continue to believe that this thing's heading in the right direction? Because it is, this year is one of those, it's one of those years that you can just kind of say just incremental progress. We'll probably get it done so we can kind of see your new plan coming into place. But at some point, you're going to have to ask a little more from them. And we'll see, the offseason moves, all that stuff that they get going. But again, season's not over yet. There's lots to be interested here. And I think, it's going to take a run. Don't get me wrong, but there is a possibility of postseason play. And a couple of weeks ago, I didn't think that was possible.
A couple of weeks ago, we didn't know if they'd win another game, and now we're sitting there going, you know what? They're pretty good at home, and they seem to have figured this out. So we're getting up against it on time. So I want to know, what is your prediction for the game tonight?
Yeah, I've been saying I think I like the Eagles. I think the Chiefs have, of course, a few higher end players in the Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce, but I think the better team overall is the Eagles. The running game. They play the football like Matt Rule wants to, like I like to see done. Yep. So, I mean, but there's no better equalizer than Patrick Mahomes. So I think we're in tune for a good game, but I think the Eagles, in the end, get it done.
I do too. What's your score prediction?
I'm gonna go with. I think it's gonna be a pretty close game. I think 34-28 type of score.
Interesting. I'm going to throw out. I'm going to go Eagles, and I'm going to say it's going to be 30-17. That defensive line is at a level that the NFL has not seen very often for the Philadelphia Eagles, and I think they make it a very long day for Patrick Mahomes.
Do we get a dirty play from Sue on his way out?
No, but I think it would be awesome if he wound up with like a strip sack for a touchdown.
Yeah.
Or some big play.
big,
I think he's gonna do something that you're gonna be like, oh,
yeah.
And it, whether it's a play that changes the game, who knows? But he's the type of savvy veteran that they brought him in for a reason, and this is the reason today.
Yeah.
So he's going to go make a play. Thank you very much, Jake. Greatly appreciated. Yeah. And Husker Rewind, Tom and I will be back 5 to 7 next Sunday right here on 93.7 The Ticket. Happy Super Bowl Sunday.